Oh, hello, everyone. We're going to get started with our today's webinar on DataMaestro, Data Orchestration Reimagined. A little bit about me. My name is Andrew Chavis. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Revelwood. I've spent over 20 years implementing TM1 and planning analytics solutions, so I'm familiar with the challenges of using TM1 and planning analytics, especially around the administration of your systems. A little bit about Revelwood. We've been implementing TM1 planning analytics for over 25 years, and Revelwood Labs has been developing tools to enhance TM1 and PA for almost as long. Really, in fact, an early predecessor to DataMaestro called Data Control was actually licensed and distributed by Applix, the original owner of TM1, before it was acquired by Cognos and then subsequently by IBM. So let's talk about the problem. Some of you may recognize this. This is a TurboIntegrator or TI script, or a portion of one anyway. Most developers that I've worked with over the years love TI. It's a very powerful, very flexible tool. And as scripting languages go, it's actually somewhat simple. However, most TM1 and PA admins are not developers. They don't have computer science degrees. They don't have backgrounds in programming. They're finance people. They're accounting people. And TI was not built for finance users. Many admins tend to get overwhelmed by TurboIntegrator and the scripting language. Now, competition out in the marketplace to planning analytics uses FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, around TurboIntegrator to scare prospects about the difficulty of maintaining their TM1 and PA systems. And to be honest, they've got a point because, as I said, TI was made for developers, not administrators, which is really why we created DataMaestro. It's an intuitive data orchestration platform. Orchestrate your TM1 planning analytics data with no TI scripting or coding, all in minutes, just from a simple web interface. So what do we mean by data orchestration platform? Well, at its core, DataMaestro is a tool to enable admins to perform data manipulation tasks within their TM1 PA models without the need for TI programming. It allows the admin to copy, move, clear, export data from a single cube or from multiple cubes at one time, but it's a lot more. You can group jobs or tasks together and run on a schedule. There's detailed logging, easily accessible right from the tool. Email alerts are automatically sent when a job is complete. It's not intended to replace TurboIntegrator. TI is a very, very powerful tool, and there's a lot of functionality that belongs in TI. But you can manage your DataMaestro tasks and TI processes directly from the DataMaestro interface and take advantage of the built-in logging and messaging features. And we'll see that in a little while. So let's talk about some use cases. How might people use DataMaestro? Well, versioning, seeding the budget, creating monthly forecasts for very typical tasks in a planning environment. Use it to snapshot, freeze the current copy of your forecast, present to management, to copy into a board book, etc. You can create extract files. You can simply create a flat file when the ODBC connection is available to export to a downstream system. Use what-if scenarios. Directly in planning analytics, sandboxing exists, and it's a very powerful feature, but it's not widely used because it's actually very complicated to set up. So here's a way to create very simple what-if scenarios. Updates to business structures. If you hire a new salesperson and you want to move targets from salesperson 1 to salesperson 2 just for a specific region, you can do it through DataMaestro. And you can even add the new salesperson. You can add the element right into the salesperson dimension right from DataMaestro as you're copying data. And you can leverage the messaging feature to keep a detailed list of every time a job was run and the result and the parameters that were used. We actually have a client who uses DataMaestro just for that, just to satisfy their auditors. Having access to a detailed history of when jobs were run and what the result of them was saves a person a lot of time. So again, these are the benefits we're hearing from our customers. It's saving them time and effort by not having to write complex TI code to perform simple tasks. It saves frustration over searching through TM1 message logs and knowing when jobs are completed and what the resulting status is. But really the overall theme is that it gives admins a greater comfort level that they can own their systems without really relying so heavily on outside consultants. And before we jump into the demo, here's a quote from one of our customers who is an experienced TM1 user who says he wishes DataMaestro was available years ago because of how much easier his job has been. So with that, let's take a look at the product in action. There we go. So let's jump into a Planning Analytics dashboard here. Now, this is Planning Analytics. We're looking at PAW, Planning Analytics Workspace. This works just the same with TM1. If you're still on perspectives and have Excel reports, it works exactly the same. But here I have a PAW dashboard. And what are we looking at here? Well, we have three different cubes. We have the finance detail cube here in my left. I have a finance summary cube in the middle, and I've got my plan sales cube on the right. Three separate cubes, all have their own dimensionality. So as you'll see, we have budget data filled in for each of our cubes, and forecast is blank. So our task, as comes to us from our boss, is saying, well, it's time to seed our forecast. Let's create the numbers that are in budget, move it over into forecast, and hey, while we're at it, let's increase all the values by 5% to start with our forecast. Okay, great. So if I'm in TM1 and Planning Analytics, what would I do? Well, I'd go over TI script, maybe one that exists already, or maybe I'd be creating a new one. And I would start going through for my first cube and building a source view and modifying subsets or manipulating existing subsets, and then doing a lot of coding to make sure values are as they're supposed to be and making sure things are validated properly. And maybe when I'm done on the epilogue, I'd clean up my subsets and my views. And I would do that for the first cube. And then once that was done, I'd create a process for the second cube. And then when that was done, I'd create a process for the third cube. Now, even existing experienced TM1 developers who might look at that and say, well, that's fairly simple. Even for them, it's going to take a bit of time to create those three processes. So, again, the experienced developers this can save them some time, but for an admin who's not comfortable with TurboIntegrator, this can be a really daunting task. So let's take a look and see how DataMaestro might be able to help us. So I'm going to pop over to my DataMaestro screen, and here we have the DataMaestro interface. Along the left, we have some options. Some of these are administrative functions, but we're going to focus on tasks and packages today. And we'll start in tasks. Tasks are somewhat analogous to TurboIntegrator processes in the sense that they perform a function. They're not as robust. They don't do as many different things as the TI process can do. They're more focused. So let's take a look at maybe an existing one, or let's create a new one actually, because we have a task ahead of us. We want to copy budget into forecast for three separate cubes, and we want to increase those values by 5%. So let's add a task. We're going to create a new one from scratch so we can see how we would do it. I click new task, and my new task screen pops up, and it's going to ask me for some pretty simple information here. Right? So the first thing it wants to know is task type. Well, I can copy data, I can move data, or I can zero out. Copy will take data, as you might imagine, and copy it from one area to the other. Moving it will move the data from one area to another and clear out where you started, clear out the source area, or you can just zero out a target area. So those are our three options. here, for our purposes, we're going to copy data. We want to copy data from budget into forecast. Okay. The next thing, as if you were building a TI process, first thing I want to know is what source data am I working with? What data do I want to copy? Well, here it's interesting because I could use a source type as a single cube and give it a multiply factor. We'll give that to that in a second. And I can select a particular cube and say, all right, I'll do a finance detail. Let's look at that cube. And then it gives me all the dimensions that make up that cube. And I can come and select a version or a business unit, just as kind of you would in creating a view in a TM1 PA. But that's not what we're tasked with, because we need to do this for 3 cubes. So I could do this 3 times, but wouldn't it be great if we could do this in one shot? So when I click on my source type, instead of a single cube, I have an option for multiple cubes. I can also move values around, but hard-coded values. But again, for our purposes, we want to work with multiple cubes. Okay, so now let's give it a number of 1.05. We want to increase whatever values we move or copy by 5%. And now you'll see, instead of asking me for cubes, it's asking me for dimensions. Well, why is that? How's that going to work? Well, the way it works is that we want to move data across a particular dimension. Right? We want to go across our version dimension. We want to copy from budget to forecast across a bunch of different cubes. So DataMaestro is going to ask me, what dimensions are you interested in? Well, let's add a dimension here and say, well, the first dimension I want to work with is my version dimension. And I want to start with my budget. Okay. So I've selected my version dimension. It brings up a simple sort of subset, excuse me, subset editor. I can select budget, or I can select any existing element and say, okay, oops, say, okay. And now, since I don't want to do this across all time, I only want to do this for 1 year, I'm going to add another dimension and say, let's look at my time dimension. And I'm going to select all of 2022. And you'll notice I can select a parent element. I can select a consolidated element here. DataMaestro is smart enough to know that if I select a consolidated element, it means I want to work with all the n-level descendants of that element. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to select 2022 and say, okay. And other than that, I want to move all the data. So DataMaestro now goes back to my model and says, all right, well, there are 4 cubes in your model that contain both the version and the time dimension. Which of these cubes do you want to work with? Well, here's finance detail, finance history, finance summary, and plan sales. Well, let's go jump back to my dashboard. I have finance detail, I have finance summary, I have plan sales. So those 3 I want to work with, definitely. Finance history, I happen to know that's for historical data. I don't want to touch that. There's no reason for me to move data around in my history cube. That's literally there to store older data. So let's unselect that. We could do it for there if we wanted, but we don't need to for these purposes. So we say, okay, we're going to work with these 3 cubes. Now, where do you want it to go? Right, where's this data going to go now that we've selected our source? Well, let's take a look at the target location over here on the right. The first thing it's going to ask me is, what do you want to do? Do you want to replace the target value, or do you want to accumulate data? You want to accumulate, do you want to overwrite what's there, or do you want to add to what's there? Here we're going to be replacing. Actually, it wouldn't matter because we have zeros in our forecast, so we could add to it. It would end up with the same result. But let's select replace, and in our dimensions, we want to go. We're starting with budget, but we want to go to forecast. So let's select forecast. Now, if I wanted to, I could create an actual element right here. I could create a brand new element and call this what if. Best case, what if, worst case. You can create forecast version 2. You can create budget final, right? So you can create an element right here and copy data right to it. Now we're not going to do that because my dashboard isn't set up for that. So I'm just going to select forecast and say okay, and we're going to stay in 2022, and then we're done. That's all DataMaestro needs to know. So let's save this, and we're going to call this data copy for multiple cubes, and we'll call this, put a description in, copy budget to forecast. Save this. We'll go to my tasks. There's my data copy for multiple cubes. I just created it a minute ago. And let's run it. Are you sure we want to run it? Okay. And it's been kicked off successfully. You can see up here. Now, while that's running, let's take a look at the history. Now, I took too long. It's already completed successfully. When it was started, that's how long it took. That's who it's run by. But you also have a lot of information about the process, the task itself. We have a little more detail here, right? We have the same copy of what we just saw here, but we also have a lot of information about what was selected when we saved this task, right? It's a copy task. We're multiplying things by 1.05. Here's my source information. Here's my target information down here. You actually have detailed log information, step by step, what's been going on. Now, this is not groundbreaking. TM1 and Planning Analytics stores this sorts of information as well, but it's not easy to find. For those of you who've been through the TM1 server logs and the message logs and the scanning that you have to do in order to find this information, it's much, much harder than it needs to be. Here, it's all right at your fingertips. It's all right in the system. So the other thing we'll notice is that we got an email. Right? So from my Revelwood Labs email, I've got the data copy for multiple cubes task has been completed. It's completed successfully. You can click here. That link will bring you back to this screen so you can get more detailed information about it. We have another customer who uses this tool, and that's a big part of what he loves about it, is that he'll run jobs for people, he'll run TI chores, and he'll be constantly getting phone calls from people saying, hey, is my job done yet? Is my job done yet? And now he can look at him and say, listen, the email will come out. When it's done, the email will be out. So it saves him a whole lot of phone calls. So, okay, so this says completed successfully. It took 6 seconds. Let's jump back over to my dashboard. Let me refresh. And there we go. Across 3 separate cubes, my budget has been copied into my forecast. Everything's been increased by 5%. My finance detail and summary cubes, the numbers match as you'd expect them to. I've got some planned sales where the units and sales figures have gone up. My pretty graphs all look like they should, and now I can do some variance between budget and forecast, and I can start playing around with the forecast. So again, that's that multi-cube data copy, increasing things by a percentage is something through TurboIntegrator that would take some time, as I said, even for sort of experienced TM1 TurboIntegrator developers. That's a time-consuming process, and you see it took a matter of minutes to move that data around in our model. So back to our DataMaestro screen. Let's take a look at our packages. So we were looking at tasks before. Let's take a look at packages. And a package is somewhat analogous to a chore in TurboIntegrator. All right. So I've got some pre-built packages. This first one, clear forecasts for finance detail, summary, and sales plan. As you might imagine, I use this demo somewhat frequently. I show people this example quite a lot. So I need to go and actually now, when I'm done with this, I need to clear out my forecast. So I've got a package here. Let me edit that. And it's made up of 3 tasks: 0 the finance summary, 0 the finance detail, 0 the sales plan. 3 tasks. Let me go back to my packages, and I'm going to run this because I'm going to have to do it before I show this demo again anyway. So let's say okay and kick that off. Now I can look at my history, and this, since I run this frequently, right, you can see sort of how many times I've actually gone through this demo and manipulated this data. It takes 4 seconds to for those 4 tasks to run. And I'll jump back over to my dashboard and sort of show that my forecast now gets cleared out. There we go, in all 3 of my cubes. Right, so there's something, again, simple to create, and I've got a history. I can see actually how often I've run this package, and as I click on each one, I get more information about it. I can see the log and such. Okay. So I could schedule something that's to run, right? I could schedule it to run on starting on a particular date. I could run hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. You can set it up to run once, but I want it to run overnight. I just want it to run tonight. I want to start at 11 o'clock. So, you know, you have sort of this scheduling concept to schedule your package to run as needed. And I also get emails, right? The email comes through where my clear forecast was completed. It was completed successfully. So that email comes through to let me know that it's done. And I can also, let's take a look at this second package I've created here that's called Task Process Example. As I had said earlier, DataMaestro is not intended to replace TurboIntegrator. There's all sorts of functions that belong in TI, you know, and allocations that say it might be a great example. Allocations can be very complicated, and it's a great use of TurboIntegrator. Well, I can create packages that contain both processes, TI processes, and tasks, right? So I can have a process where I'm going to copy data to a budget, and then I can run my my multi-cube copy that I just created, and then run an allocations process. That's a process. So you can have that sort of ownership of both tasks and TI processes right through this interface. And some might say, well, why would I do that? Well, again, you have the ability to look at that history of when this was run. I've never actually run this one. That's not a real package, but I can see when something was run. I get the emails when it's completed. I have a lot more ownership, a lot more control. It's a much more user-friendly interface and experience for administrators, even if you're running your TurboIntegrator processes. So I think that's about it for the demo. So let's go back to our PowerPoint, and let's see if there's any questions. Feel free to do something in the chat. Let's see if I can find that screen and see if we have any questions. Okay. Question 1. Is this a new product? Is this a new product? Well, no, it's been out since early 2021. Up until very recently, it was only available to existing Revelwood clients. So we have over 20 installed clients who have DataMaestro installed. Most of them are using it fairly extensively, but just over the past month or so, we're now opening it up to the TM1 community at large. We think that there's a lot of people who can really benefit from a tool like this, and we hope there's some interest there. And I think there might be a question coming in. There we go. Are you looking to throw in more functionality such as file movements between systems to help accommodate the processes Cognitive Command Center has? Yes, absolutely. You know, we have quite an extensive hopper of features that we're adding, and that is one of the ones we are looking at as a big leap forward. So I certainly can't say when it would be included. It wouldn't be this quarter, I would say, but that's certainly on the list of things that we are looking to add as DataMaestro grows. Okay. All right. So I guess, no, if there's no more questions. Oops, can't get my PowerPoint to go into my next thank you slide. So if that's if no other questions, I will follow up with any responses to any questions I didn't get to. If there's anything that comes through, feel free to follow up. Let me see if I can. I can't get that slide to show up. So yeah, I need to get my, sorry, I need to get my, I don't know why this slide isn't showing up. There we go. There's my information. So feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss anything further. My contact information is here. Feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. You can visit our website to get more information. And a representative from Revelwood will be following up with you over the next few days to schedule maybe a quick 15-minute follow-up to address any of your questions or concerns as well. But with that, I'd like to thank you for taking some time to look at DataMaestro with me today. Thanks.